Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to tonight's presidential debate. Let's meet our two candidates. First, from Cleveland, Ohio, currently residing in Jacksonville, Florida, Zoran Vranisevic, the Democratic candidate for the next president of the United States. And also from Cleveland, Ohio, now residing in Royal Palm Beach, Florida, the Republican candidate, Jake Dragutinovic. Gentlemen, have a seat. Thank you for joining us for tonight's debate. Here are the rules of the debate. As the mediator, I will give you 1 minute to answer a question and 30 seconds for rebuttal. Okay, these are questions that I have carefully chosen for this debate today. And we will begin with the Republican candidate, Jake Dragutinovic. Again, you have 1 minute for the answer, and then Zoran, you'll have 30 seconds for the rebuttal. The first question for the Republican candidate, Jake Dragutinovic. The current unemployment rate is exactly the same as where it was 3.5 years ago when Obama became president, at 8.3%. How will you change or help lower the unemployment rate to be back to more of a respectable level, about 4 to 5%? You have 1 minute, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Val.
You don't have to stand up. You can sit down.
I'm sorry. I like to stand. As you pointed out, Obama and the policies of the Democratic Party in the last few years have actually put the United States of America on a backward track to relying solely on government help, on government issued jobs, they have not provided us with the path to prosperity. My plan as the next president of the United States is to eliminate the red tape that prohibits the small businesses, in particular, the #1 employer of all Americans in the United States, to allow them to prosper quicker, allow them to avoid, like I said, the red tape and the government involvement in providing jobs.
Your time is up. Thank you. 30 seconds for the rebuttal on that?
Can you please repeat?
Yeah, the question is...
What do you want to hear from me?
Sure. The rebuttal question is the unemployment rate is currently exactly the same as where it was 3.5 years ago. So the question is...
How would I fix that?
Well, currently, the Obama, during the Obama presidency, it has not gone down at all.
Right.
So why should we give you another 4 years?
Well, the president isn't the only person that dictates policy in this country. It's, as you know, the House and the Senate. And who is the House represented by majority-wise right now? It's the Republicans. They haven't done anything in the last... They said when they were reelected in this last big election that they were going to change things. They haven't done anything. They haven't worked with this president. When you don't work with the president and there's not compromise, you're not going to get anything done. And that's where the stalemate is.
Well, but the Republicans have only been majority of the House for the last year.
Can you tell me in this last year what they've done positive for the economy?
If I may,
we'll give you 30 seconds for the rebuttal.
Thank you. Unfortunately, the Democratic candidate has failed to point out the obvious, that you can't bring prosperity and jobs back to America with bailouts. Therefore, we can't support...
So was it wrong
I'm sorry,
to save GM? Was it wrong to save GM? Your party did not want to save GM, and it ended up being the right move. Tell Detroit right now that was the wrong move.
As I was saying before I was interrupted, the President of the United States, Barack Obama, hasn't presented any plan that's acceptable to the American people, not just to the Republican Party, the American people as a whole, to allow us to prosper. Borrowing more money on a regular basis from foreign countries is not a plan to prosperity, folks.
Okay, your time is up. We have to...
Can I rebuttal to that?
Sure.
Your last president, who was a Republican, introduced the bailout, and when Obama came into office, he just agreed with it and signed it on. So you guys were with the bailout too, but now it's popular to say that you weren't. Both sides were for the bailout. Don't let him kid you.
Well, that's another question that we need to address.
But I think he's
What
asking
started
us how we would fix.
Correct.
How would I bring jobs?
Go ahead.
I would lower taxes for corporations that are operating outside the United States right now and bring the jobs back home. That doesn't sound like a Democratic policy, but I'm for compromise. I'll do anything to bring jobs home.
Okay, we're going to have to move on to the next question.
Go ahead.
So the next question, the deficit is currently at pretty close to 16 trillion, okay, which is more than tripled in the 3 years. You guys both realize that we're going to have to make drastic cuts in the government's budget in order to decrease. And some of these cuts, all Americans will have to sacrifice. And one of the biggest questions that comes up all the time is Medicare, is Social Security, okay? How are you going to lower the budget but still be able to provide those type of benefits, government benefits, to the citizens that need them? And we're going to start with the Democratic.
I think we obviously can't continue down the same road we're going. I think we can agree on that. As president, I would come to the table with the Republicans and try to come to some sort of compromise. I would introduce possibly raising the retirement age to 67, 68. You got to start with small steps because this is not a popular issue to cut stuff like that. So you got to do baby steps. We can't even come to the table and compromise on baby steps. So I think there needs to be a third-party committee that comes in and brings us to the table, which we do have right now in Congress, and it's going to end up being that way because both parties can't come to a decision, and there's going to be unpopular cuts.
Okay, so your answer is to just increase by a few years the retirement age.
That, along with a couple of other things.
What about the Medicare?
The Medicare, obviously, right now I would have to look at a panel of experts on that. I couldn't tell you what I would do, but we'd have to start with obviously raising the age.
Okay.
There's less people in the job market right now that don't pay into Social Security, and the numbers just don't match. And I would also raise the taxable income from 90,000 to 200,000.
Okay, and rebuttal.
Unfortunately, this is where the Republicans and the Democrats disagree totally.
You guys don't want to raise taxes.
I'm sorry, so
you don't want to raise taxes, but you have to.
You cannot raise taxes and put the burden on solely
you can't cut and not raise taxes. You have to do both.
Mediator, can I speak, please?
Sure.
Thank you. The problem is we're past the point of baby steps. This country is on a debt spiral that cannot be contained at this pace anymore.
We're not even doing baby steps.
We need drastic cuts, folks. As fellow Americans, we need drastic cuts in all of our entitlement programs that unfortunately weren't designed for individuals.
But how will you make those cuts, sir?
Well, we have to restructure the current Social Security program and Medicare program.
Do you have a specific plan?
Yes, we do. Our plan is, without raising taxes to the fellow Americans that are burdened enough by the policies of our government as we speak today.
So people making over $90,000 are overburdened?
People that are making $90,000 are helping create future jobs.
Well, it's
taxing them and giving them money back to the government.
Your idea is trickle-down economics, correct? Which hasn't worked yet.
What would be the benefit of continually raising taxes on the wealthier portion of America? What would be their benefit to continue to create wealth and jobs for this country?
Do you think it's right?
That's what I'm asking you right now.
Do you think it's right that Warren Buffett pays less taxes than I?
He pays a less percentage, the total amount. That's a misconception, by the way.
He's a billionaire.
He pays a less percentage.
He has come out and said he doesn't mind to pay more.
This is where the Democrats confuse the issue. Warren Buffett, as many other billionaires and millionaires in this country, pay their fair share of taxes, folks. It's a percentage of their total income. That percentage is a lower percentage. Obviously, we're not going to tax Warren Buffett at 50% like we're going to tax somebody that makes $150,000 at 50% and so on.
Well, I think the media asked you specifically what you would do. You haven't offered any ideas.
Well, I'm trying to offer, but you interrupt me. So I appreciate if you just listen to the.
You'll have your chance for rebuttal. Sir.
Thank you.
I haven't heard a solution.
Sure.
Well, I can't.
We'll let the audience be the judge of.
Thank you. Drastic cuts are needed in a restructuring program of the current Medicare and Social Security and all other entitlement programs. First of all, I would try to draw the money out from our foreign spending. That would be our number one plan. Helping other countries before helping America first does not make sense in our opinion, in my opinion particularly. Number two, defense budget spending would have to be reduced to supplement obviously restructured programs like Medicare and Social Security and other entitlement programs, not just that. So that will be part of our plan. And
But your party doesn't want to reduce defense spending.
Well,
you are the
that's
party
not the
of big spending on defense contracts.
I'm speaking as the next president of the United States.
Okay, sir,
folks.
your time is up. Okay, we're going to move on to foreign policy here. And we're going to start with the Republican here first. In the media, you've been somewhat criticized for your lack of experience in when it comes to foreign policy. Our Democratic candidate here has served in the Navy and has traveled the world and has a lot more experience when it comes to foreign policy. The current situation in Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan are the three countries I want to talk to you about and see how are you going to help end the war in those three countries.
Thank you. And first of all, I'd like to thank our fellow Democratic candidate for his services in the National Army, service of the United States and all other veterans across the world. Defense budgets are based on obviously current and future potential conflicts around the world. We as a potential threat is identified around the world, we do have to adjust the defense spending. We should create emergency funds for that. We do that in a particular, as of right now, we don't have those emergency funds. We're pulling them from entitlement programs, and that's part of the problem. We have to restructure the way our government works. We have to balance the budget. We have to allow Medicare to sit in one, it can't allow to sit in the state that it is. No, neither can Social Security, neither can any other expense. Current conflicts around the world, such as you mentioned, Mediator Val, thank you for Iraq intervention, has been somewhat successful at the cost of lives, not just Americans, but also Iraqis and other.
If you had to choose between the three countries, our budget cannot allow us to help all three countries. Which country do you find as the biggest
As the
need?
leader of the free world, I would direct my armed forces with the help of other nations around the world to come to first a diplomatic solution in these countries. You can't go just into every single conflict bullheaded without having a solution.
Okay.
Therefore, with the help of the rest of the world, we cannot further continue to be the only financial burden that takes on all the expenses of future conflicts.
Time is up. Thank you. And we're going to give you 2 minutes for the rebuttal on this one.
Well, I tend to agree with my opponent on the. We can't be the police of the whole world, I think is what you're trying to say.
Pretty much.
It's a tough decision. We have to pick and choose our battles. We can't get involved in every conflict. Syria right now is a touchy situation. I think we need to have United Nations, I think is what you said, come in there and figure out a solution. We have special forces that could deal with that, which would limit our costs, I think, which tends to be the future right now. I don't think sending troops into a region is the way to do it now. I think you spend less money, take care of the conflict, and that's it.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to move on to the next question. It has to do with immigration. As you know, there are millions of illegal immigrants here in the country. And some feel that we don't do a good enough job of protecting our borders. And some also feel that had we been doing that, during these crises and not allow illegal immigrants to come in and take some of the jobs that unemployed Americans could have, maybe the unemployment rate wouldn't be as high as it is now. We're going to start with the Democratic candidate here, Zach. How would you help fix this issue or this problem we're having with immigration, with so many illegal immigrants into the country that, again, they're taking jobs away from American citizens?
I think definitely building a wall on the borders is not productive. I think we need to just hire more border patrol, have stricter laws, make sure the people that are here that we know are breaking the law, we need to get them out of here because they're costing the taxpayers money. I know your next question to me, who's going to pay for this? Well, I think it'll pay for itself because you'll have more of a tax base from Americans that would take those jobs that the illegals have, that would pay into the system to hire and control the borders and other stuff.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, not building a wall, but specifically how would you stop them then? Just hiring more.
Well, we have
people?
we have surveillance systems. We have a lot of technology from the air, satellite pictures. You can pinpoint where the problems are.
Okay.
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like it's working.
It's not going to be foolproof, but our intelligence knows where these people are coming in.
Okay.
And we need to just clamp down on it.
Okay, and the rebuttal.
Thank you. As my opponent has tried to explain the situation on the borders, I'll explain it in clear terms for all Americans. Our borders are unsecured. Both parties have done a terrible job of securing our borders in the past, not just 5 years, 10 years, but the past 50 years to be exact. Allowing immigrants to come to our borders freely has damaged our way of life, has provided extra burden on local communities around our country. My solution is not just building walls and putting people on the front lines. That will help the problem to a certain extent. Obviously, it hasn't helped it enough. My solution is providing a better future in those countries so people can stay in their own countries and not be willing to risk their lives through unimaginable circumstances to get to this country just to get a low-paying job and not pay into the tax system, not contribute to our society.
But I think a lot of the critics will tell you that we first need to fix our economy here before we worry about fixing other economies in the world.
And how are we going to pay for that?
Yes.
Unfortunately,
Well, your time is up. We're going to give a 30-second rebuttal here.
The candidate doesn't want to raise taxes, but he wants to go help other countries. It doesn't add up. We can't. I agree with our mediator. I think we need to be. I hate to say this blunt, but we need to worry about ourselves right now. We need to fix this country, and then I think everything else will fix itself.
if I can have a 5-second rebuttal on that.
You can have 15 seconds.
Thank you. Fixing our country, sir, will not help the Americans only. It helps the rest of the world. America is the leader of the world.
I said that.
Excuse me. America is the leader of the world. We have to simultaneously, that's the difference between our policies, fix our problems and continue to support the rest
But
of the
I'm
world.
asking you, how are you going to fix the problems by not raising taxes?
He actually had his 2 minutes he didn't really address that. So we're going to move on to the last and final question of tonight's debate. It has to do with the housing crisis. 10 years ago, the housing ownership rate in this country was an all-time high. Some feel that the loose lending guidelines led to the foreclosure crisis that had started in 2006. We're 6 years into this crisis. There was a bailout plan by the Democrats that didn't appear to work, didn't really appear to save people from going into foreclosure. The question is really, how do we fix the foreclosure crisis? It's been 6 years and nothing has really worked. And we're going to let the Republicans start this one.
Thank you. As you mentioned, it was a combination of a lot of things. Loose lending guidelines, regulation that didn't make sense at the time, allowing companies in Wall Street and big banks around the world, not just in this country, to maneuver and transfer loans to investors that were not educated about what type of investment products they were buying at the time, causing a total failure of the mortgage industry itself. We had a system that worked for many years. It was called the Savings and Loan Institution. You can borrow based on certain guidelines. However, the Democratic Party in the last 30 to 40 years has been pushing for a home for every American, which I would love. In a realistic world, that can't happen. I would love for everyone to have a home and experience that feeling of opening up your door and you have a piece of the American dream. However, that doesn't happen in the real world. Go back to the system we had 50 years ago, savings and loan. Go back to regular guidelines. They weren't even strict. People with responsible credit, people with down payments, people that had employment for an extended period of time without switching jobs every 6 months. Those are the people that received home ownership.
Thank you. And just to remind the Democratic candidate here, you know, the $770 billion bailout to the banks were given to them during your presidency. It did begin at the very end of the Bush presidency, but it was approved by Barack Obama, and the banks were bailed out, and some of the banks were saved because of this bailout, but they were supposed to take that money and help the homeowners fix the, help them with their issues, and it seems like that hasn't really worked.
I think we need to look at each case individually. I would look at each bank and see how much money was given to these banks and hold them accountable for either A, giving a loan out, or B, repaying the loan. I think the question here isn't a political issue. Yeah, Democrats did want everyone to have a house, but I think the real issue right now is the appraised market. I think we need to go in there and appraise all the houses all over again and restructure every loan based on appraisal. And that's going to limit foreclosures, keep people in their homes, and let market value.
Well, how would you
rise.
address the current foreclosure situation that's out of control, that banks are actually holding back?
Well, the bigger question is who's going to take the loss? Who's going to take the write-off of the loss of the equity?
Well, we'll have to address that, but
Okay.
we can't just sit on our hands. We
Sure.
have to do something. I think we need to look at reappraising every house.
Yeah, I can have a 5-second rebuttal on that.
You can have 30 seconds.
Thank you. Foreclosure process in most states, whether it's a judicial state or a non-judicial foreclosure process, has been in place for years in our country, dating back in the early 1900s. Banks would foreclose upon a home based on the current value of the home and the current payments and non-payments of a current borrower. There's nothing wrong with that system. Unfortunately, we did flood the market with loans, mortgage loans that were unsustainable for a lot of homeowners. However, you have to let the current capitalist market take care of itself. Government intervention, bailout loans, borrowing more money to take losses, taxpayer taking losses, does not make sense. You're the mediator, you're not the next president like me. Does not make sense, fellow Americans. This country was based on every American taking responsibility for each and every American knew what they were signing, what mortgage they were signing, whether or not they could afford it in the future. I agree that the market has collapsed. The market is unsustainable the way it is. You have to allow the foreclosure process to take place. And the legal and everything else in a few years will be normalized. Thank
So,
you.
sir, are you telling me that people that are in current foreclosure or about to be foreclosed on, we shouldn't work with them? They are responsible for signing that loan, so they should pay that loan.
I agree.
No, is that what you're telling me?
I am telling you, it's up to the people, the banks and the investors that invested their money. For example, if you invested your money, if you want to work with these homeowners, that's your choice. That's the capitalist market. It's an open market.
But it's not working, though.
It will work.
Okay.
We're not allowing it to work.
Okay.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, time is up.
Closing argument.
Yes, we're gonna give you each 2 minutes as to why we should vote for you in November. We're gonna start with the Republican candidate, and we're gonna end with the current president.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody tonight, my opponent, for having a heated debate. The mediator, Val Dragotinovic, and all the fellow Americans around this country that are listening to this debate tonight, and around the world, of course. Folks, let's get down to business. Let's get down to the main points. America has to be rebuilt from the foundation. The foundation of America is free markets. Foundation of America is not borrowing money from China, Taiwan, whoever wants, Germany, Russia, etc., or any other country or sheik around the world that wants to give us more debt. We don't need more debt. We should balance our budget. That will require us as a nation to take a sacrifice in our current daily lives and take sacrifices in entitlement programs like Medicare and Social Security and VA spending and budget defense and so on. Without these necessary cuts across the board that will impact all Americans, not just Democrats, not just Republicans, so on. We cannot raise taxes and put more burden on the American people to bail us out, the folks that didn't contribute to the mess. It's not fair, and we're not going to require them to bail us out. The American people have suffered enough through taxation, through representation, what the Democrats believe in. The time is to buckle down, to provide hope, and to provide direction for all Americans. And the only way we're going to do that is through cutting our entitlement programs to an acceptable level, not allowing our senior citizens or veterans or people that require hospitalization and medical aid to suffer.
I'm sorry,
Thank you.
your time is up. For the Democratic candidate here,
Stand up.
why should people re-elect you and give you 4 more years to try to help improve this economy and get us back into a better path?
I am a realist. Well, first of all, let me thank you for
Thank you.
being here tonight, and I'd like to say hello to the troops around the world and thank you for mediating this.
Sure.
I think that I am more reasonable. I am a man of the average people. I believe that you can't do all the things that you want to do without raising taxes. I know raising taxes is a taboo, but we have to come to the table with every idea open. I would propose hiring Harvard economics professors who are from all parties and get down and get both sides in here and compromise. We have to compromise. They don't want to come to the table. They haven't the last 4 years. We need to compromise. I'm for cutting taxes on corporations. That's not a popular Democratic idea, but I want to do it because I know that's going to bring jobs here. We need to compromise, folks. And if you think this is compromise, then vote for this guy. But if you believe me, then vote for me. That's all I need to say.
Well, again, we want to thank you both for being here tonight, and good luck to you both in November. Ladies and gentlemen, the 2 candidates, Republican Jake Dragotinovic. Here they are as they leave.